Shalom bimromav uyaseh shalom.
Matos, which I'm calling the world we build with words. You see, at the beginning of Matos, it begins with a very interesting passage about vows and oaths. This is what the Lord commands. When a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he mustn't break his word but do everything he said. Those are very important principles, neder and shavua. A neder is a vow, and that affects the status of an object. If I say that there's a neder that I won't eat a certain food, that food becomes to me as if it were treif. It's now forbidden food. A shavua affects not the object but the person. If I take a shavua not to eat, I am bound. It doesn't change the object. But both a neder and a shavua bind, and that is the meaning of the word isal. So isal nafsho, to words bind. And such is the sanctity of undertakings in Judaism that if you commit yourself to a neder or a shavua, you have to go through a very demanding process if they are to be annulled. You can't do it yourself. The parsha sets out some of the ground rules, the rest of which were supplied by the oral tradition. And of course, so seriously does Judaism take this that one annulment of vows, kol nidre, begins the holiest day of the Jewish year. Now, what are these laws doing here? In the end of Sefer BaMidbar, at the end of this journey of the Israelites from Mount Sinai to the brink of the Promised Land. Well, there's one obvious reason. The previous passage dealt with sacrifices. Sometimes the sacrifices people offered were not obligatory, they were voluntary, they were things a person had vowed or taken an oath to offer. So having dealt with the obligatory sacrifices at the end of last week's parasha, we now deal with voluntary ones, and that's one way of understanding it. However, I want to take you into a deeper reason. The Israelites were nearing the land, and there they were challenged to build a society unlike any other that existed in the ancient world, unlike really any other ever. It was going to be a free society based on a covenant between the people and God. So the rule of law was going to be secured not by the use of force or any other way, but by people honoring their commitments. They'd given their word to God at Sinai, all the things you've commanded us, we will do and we will hear, and so on and so forth. That is the meaning of a covenant society. A covenant society is a place where words, especially the words in which you make promises, are holy, are sacrosanct. And that is what I call Judaism, a religion of holy words. And those words are at the basis of the Jewish understanding of a free society. Now, listen, I need to explain this a little bit, because how do we get people to obey laws? How do we get people to act the way we would like them to act? There are two ways. Number one, you can use power. You can punish them if they don't. Number two, you can speak to self-interest. You can appeal to their advantage. Okay? Two ways of getting people to do what you want. But if you're going to base a whole society on either of those things, you're in trouble. Because if, in order to get people to act the way you want, you have to use power, then you're asking people to give up freedom. If you have to bribe them to do what you want, they're only interested in money, then at the end of the day you're going to suffer a loss of social cohesion, because some people are going to get very rich and some people are not. And if the only thing they care about is money, that society is not going to hang together very well. And therefore Judaism says, let's think of a third way. Can we do it another way? And the answer is moral obligation. Here is a people that committed itself by a verbal undertaking at Mount Sinai, and if that verbal undertaking is holy, then people will keep the law, not because they'll be punished if they don't, or they'll be rewarded if they do, but because they understand the binding power of a promise. Now, the person who understood this actually was the philosopher Nietzsche. Not a man who liked Judaism very much, but nonetheless a very profound philosopher who wrote a book called On the Genealogy of Morality. And Nietzsche is the one who understands this. Listen to his words. To breed an animal with the prerogative to promise, is that not precisely the paradoxical task which nature has set herself with regard to humankind? Is it not the real problem of humankind? What is unique about human beings is that we were able to promise, to do things with words. This is a bit of a philosophical idea, but let me give you a, for instance here. Tell me, when a chassan stands under the chuppah and he says, Harei ad mekudeshet li b'davar, well, I better not say the rest. I don't want to get married to anyone in this room. But what is he doing? Is he describing a marriage? No, he's getting married. He is doing something with those words. When a judge bangs on the gavel and says, the court is now in session, is he making a statement? No, he is actually making the court now in session. That's what is called a performative utterance, using language to do something. And that is what Nietzsche understood is fundamental to the human condition. He said, how are we going to create order out of the chaos of humanity? We all want different things. And if there's no such thing as respect for law, we'll all be fighting one another. In order to create order out of chaos, can you see, man himself will really have to become reliable, regular, necessary, even in his own self-image, so that he, as someone making a promise, is answerable for his own future. If we promise to do something and we keep our word, people will rely on us, they will trust us, and we will be able to cooperate. Learning to cooperate is the essential problem that nature set itself, and it gave us this one gift, which is that we can use language to create obligations. Some people think what's distinctive about human beings is that we use language. Are there any other animals who use language? Yes, there are. Actually, dolphins use language. Primates use language. I mean, monkeys and gibbons and baboons and things, they use language. Even bees, did you know this? Bees do little dances, and they are a form of language because they are ways of telling other bees in which direction you'll find the sugar or the pollen or whatever it is that bees talk about, or whatever's buzzing on the beeline, whatever it is. They do this by dances. We are not the only life forms that use language. But we are the only life form that use language to bind ourselves to a future, to make promises. And because we make promises, we are able to act in such a way that people can trust us, we can trust them, and out of that comes human cooperation. That is what makes us in the image of God. How did God create the world? Through words. Vayom Elokim Yehi. God said, let there be. God used words to create order out of chaos. So we use words to create order out of chaos whenever we keep our promises, and that creates social order without needing to use force and without needing to bribe people by reward. When you do that, you have the basis of a free society. A free society is built on trust, which is built on keeping your word, which is why this week's parasha, just as the Israelites are nearing the end of their journey to the promised land, are told, if you want freedom, never break your vow, never break your oath, keep your word, generate trust, and you will have a free society. Shabbat Shalom.